Welcome to Next Gen Leaders Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the path to college success. I'm Leonie Velasquez, and I'm thrilled to be your host on this journey. At Youth to Leaders, we're passionate about helping low-income and underrepresented students achieve their dreams of higher education. Our mission is to empower youth to obtain post-secondary credentials, certifications, and degrees that lead to meaningful employment. Since our establishment, we've been dedicated to breaking down barriers to college access and entry. We're proud to have supported countless young individuals in the Southern Central Valley, guiding them towards college persistence and completion. Join us each episode as we dive into topics such as financial aid, college readiness, career exploration, and more. Today, we have two special guests joining us, Tanya and Eric, who are both experts in financial aid and college planning. Both Tanya and Eric have extensive experience in all things financial aid. Together, they will be sharing valuable insights and tips to help navigate the world of financial aid and make informed decisions about your college journey. Welcome, Tanya and Eric.
Hi guys, I'm very excited to be on this podcast. I have a little cold, so my voice might sound a little bit weird, but we're gonna make it work. So we have a list of questions that many of our followers, viewers have been asking, and we will be addressing a couple of the top questions. But if more come up, feel free to reach out to our social media pages. We'll be more than happy to answer them.
Hi guys, this is Eric Plata Torres, Program Coordinator, Fellow for the Youth to Leaders Education Foundation. First and foremost, thank you to Leonie for having us on this episode of this series, helping students out there, in regards to their educational journey and how we can best help them. Like Tanya said, we are here to answer questions today about financial aid, some of the most burning questions that you might have or that we've gathered from students out in the community while doing workshops. One of our programs that me and Tanya are conducting this year is the Cash for College program, where we are going out to high schools and helping high school students apply for financial aid, whether it's through the FAFSA application or the CADA. And our intent for each and every single workshop is to pretty much just get those applications in for every single student. Like I said, today we're going to go ahead and answer some of the most burning questions. I guess I'll start with the first one here on our list today. What are some resources that Youth to Leaders Education Foundation has to offer to help guide students during their FAFSA application? Do you want to go ahead and maybe start off with that one, Tony?
Okay, so we are currently offering, like we mentioned, Cash for Colleges around the community. So these Cash for Colleges are pretty much, like a workshop style. You go in there, there's computers, and students get to work on their application alongside their parents. Also, we are doing the Cash for Colleges at high schools, libraries, and even like KCSOS. So these Cash for Colleges are for the community. If the student goes to a specific high school, that student will go to that high school and do their financial application, but they will also be able to go to our community workshop, which are held at the Kern County Superintendent of Schools or also here in our office.
Another resource that we have to offer that's not mainly, in regards to, you know, the content of what happens at a Cash for College is our scholarship application through our scholarship program named Y2 Scholarship Program. We are able to offer some scholarships to Kern County students if they apply and are eligible for those applications. We are able to provide guidance as well in filing that application. While we cannot help in writing the personal statement or any component of maybe writing a letter of recommendation for the student, we can definitely help them with the process of applying. One of the beautiful things about this scholarship is that it's based on need, not necessarily merit. Well, it's based on merit as well, I would say, but we look at component of what's the need of the student when it comes to applying, right? And we usually determine that through students submitting their FSS, which stands for FAFSA Submission Summary, or submitting their CalSAR, also known as the California Student Aid Report. If you are a FAFSA applicant, you'll be getting an FSS. And then if you are a California Dream Act applicant, you'll be getting your CalSAR or yeah, CalSAR. So essentially, we can also help you, in getting those documents, which are supporting documents for your application. But, if you're interested in applying, definitely visit our social medias and our website, which is where you can find the scholarship application in order for you to start your application for scholarships. But I believe that kind of, in regards to financial aid, that's what we mainly offer here at Y2LEF. I don't know if there's anything else, Tanya, or is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, Eric. You covered our scholarship, we covered our cash for colleges. Also, you can like I said, our social medias are always available through there too to answer any questions. I know technology is a big thing in social media, so feel free to reach out to our Instagram or LinkedIn or email. We're basically your go-to resource and someone you can definitely count on for any college application or even financial aid application. I know processes are a little messy right now and many questions, there's a couple changes, but we'll definitely be here for you guys and reach out to us.
The second question is, what are the key changes or updates to financial aid policies and programs for 2024? And before Tanya goes ahead and starts, explaining this question, I do want to mention that we're going to talk mainly about changes to the general idea of financial aid, not specifically to FAFSA or CADA. Now, some of those changes do encompass with CADA and FAFSA. However, for this specific answer, we'll be touching on the general changes rather than specific changes. So now I'll go ahead and pass the mic to Tanya with that question so she can go ahead and start.
Thank you, Eric. So yes, we there is many changes, and one of the main changes is basically the date on the application, the priority submission date. So it opened up in December 2023, and the priority filing deadline is April 2nd for students. So if students want to have the maximum amount of aid and grants, they do need to meet this April 2nd deadline. I know there's many changes right now and many students are struggling to get their application in, but it's very important that they do submit it by April 2nd. The next one is the FSAID is more important than ever. So what is the FSAID? It's basically you creating a username and a password that allows you to start the FAFSA application for FAFSA filers, and then the parent will also need to make an FSAID if the student is a dependent. So basically, it's very simple. They make, like I said, they make a username and a password. Once they create that, they will be able to do their FAFSA application. The next one is the parent and contributor information. So if a student is a dependent student on their parents and parents are divorced, whoever is the parent that contributes the most will be the one having to make the FSAID to be able to sign their student's FAFSA. If that parent remarried, parents the parents' information and the new spouse will need to include their tax information for the student. Um, and it goes a little bit deeper, but that's basically the main component. Now, if the student's parents are married together, then and they file together, then both information will be included on there, but only one parent will need to make an FSAID. Also, it does not matter if the student's parents has a legal status, if they have a social or not. Students with mixed status families will both need to make an FSAID in order to sign their student's FAFSA application.
Alrighty, so for the other three changes, well, there's more than the six we're going to cover, but we would be here all day if we were to cover every single one of them. So we're only covering the most essential, crucial ones that we want you guys to be aware of. So the first one is a change in terminology that plays a big role in your financial aid. And it's so formally before this new application came out in December 31st of 2023, there was this thing called the expected family contribution when you completed your FAFSA form, right? Or also your CADA or California Dream Act, you would be given an EFC number. This is how much you would have to pay, or you and including your family would have to pay out of pocket in order for you to, be able to afford college. And EFC standard for expected family contribution. However, now there's a new thing called student aid index number, and that replaces the formerly known EFC. And this is a new need analysis formula that will be used when awarding need based grants and scholarships at the federal and state level, and even at the institutional level. Something that I kind of want to go off on a tangent here and explain is that when you are submitting your FAFSA application and your California Dream Act, you are reporting your need, and then that need goes to federal, state, and or institutional agencies, and then they see what they can help you with. That's essentially how the financial aid process works here in the state of California, and also I would say within the US. Or the country of the US. So this SAI, it's a very important number in calculating essentially your need for financial aid. Now, the beautiful thing about this new formula is that this number that you get from the SAI could go down up to negative 1,500. If you do get that SAI negative 1,500, this just means that you would be eligible for maximum financial aid at the federal level. So you would probably be getting the maximum Pell Grant, which is where a lot of students, get financial aid from the state of California, the Pell Grant. There are other federal grants out there that you can definitely do your own research on. But the Pell Grant is the most commonly known, where you can get financial aid from the federal government. Now, when it comes to the state government or the state of California, it's through Cal Grants or the Middle Class Scholarship. And they also use this SAI number to award you, whichever amount of financial aid you are in need of. At the institutional level, they have their own criteria. But the important thing here is that you should not worry about this number. Well, you should definitely be on the lookout for this number. And this number is going to be highlighted in your FSS, the FAFSA Submission Summary Report, or your CalSAR. For California Dream Act applicants, but you shouldn't worry in calculating this number. That's not something that you need to do. This is something that's done behind the scenes. That's done for you through the application. All you need to worry about as a student is making sure you submit your FAFSA or your California Dream Act application by the California priority deadline, which is April 2nd, 2024, as my colleague Tanya mentioned. So that's that one change, the term of EFC changing to SAI, Student Aid Index Number. The second one is that this new application for FAFSA and even the CADA, so there was a lot of changes for FAFSA. That's something that I have to say for sure. A lot of new changes to the application, but there were some enhancements or minor changes to the California Dream Act application. And all of this is to make a more streamlined application process for students. This means that some questions were removed, some were added, and some were rearranged. So while one student can see more questions on the FAFSA application, another student can see fewer questions on the FAFSA application, and like was in the CADA. So when it comes to the FAFSA, the thing that makes it easier, it's the new process of having an FSA ID when it comes to the student and the contributors, because they can just transfer, or well, not you transferring, but using what's called the DDX, direct data exchange, for you to go ahead and give authorization or consent and approval through your FSAID accounts while filing, the application in order to, through, transfer that information over from the IRS to the FAFSA application. That's what kind of makes it easier and more streamlined. The fact that you don't have to go through the tax forms anymore and, doing questions, manually yourself. So when it comes to that, step, it is definitely a much easier process. It's more streamlined for a lot of students. And then the final one I would say is there was a lot of new changes in the terminology of financial aid in general this year. The first one was a new term called contributor. So if you've heard, a lot of you guys have probably heard it by now. And this is anyone who is asked to provide information on the FAFSA, whether it's a parent or a student spouse or the spouse of a student, just as an example. And then there's the other thing that I mentioned right now, giving consent in the FAFSA form, where each contributor will need to consent to their information being included on the FAFSA. And what I mean by information, I mean the tax information, right? From the year 2022. So this consent is not something that you do this year and you're done. Every year you apply for financial aid through the FAFSA, you have to give consent to transferring the information from the IRS from prior year. So for students that are, applying for this year in the 2024-2025, they are gathering information or, giving consent to transferring information from the tax year 2022. So, this new terminology, the streamlined process of filing, the change of the terminology, you know, what parent you need to include. It's a lot to take in. So that's why we advise every single student if they are having troubles filing the application, whether it's the FAFSA or the California Dream Act, to go and to one of our workshops. We have community workshops, or if you're a high school student here in the Kern County area, your high school more than likely has the workshop coming up or that it occurred already. Or you can always contact us, so don't fear the application process just because of all of these new, changes. If anything, learn them, get familiarized with the process. We're going to go ahead and move on to the following question about how can students navigate the financial aid application in 2024? And Tanya, if it's okay with you, I wanted to start off with this one. Would that be okay?
Of course.
Okay. All right. All right. So, and I wanted to start it off because there's a way that you should be doing this as students. Mind you that right now I'm talking to students, right? I'm directing myself to students. So for this one, students preferably should be starting their application through their accounts. That's how you can navigate this new application this year. Now there is another alternative where with the FAFSA, not with the CADA, but with the FAFSA, your parent can start the application for you. However, that makes it a little bit more complicated because then the student might not be aware that the FAFSA is, starting for them. So for the FAFSA, when it comes to the FAFSA, it's best if the student starts the application in their account and then invites the parent or the contributor to contribute to their application through their own account, through the parent's account or contributor's account. This will make it much easier for you as the student and much easier for your contributor being the parent, or for students that are, with spouses, for your spouse, if that would be the case or it's applicable to you. But a lot of people are overthinking the process, I feel like, of navigating it. And that's the new thing about this new application. There's no longer just one, you do one thing under one account, right? Now you do you start out, the student starts the application and invites the parent or the student spouse, if that's applicable to you, and then they go ahead and do that application through more than one account when it comes to the FAFSA. Anything y'all have to add, Tanya, there?
I do recommend, like Eric mentioned, that the student starts the application and then the parent gets invited or the contributor. Many times students are married, and so some students are married. I know our high school students tend to not be married, but the new terminology is contributor, like we mentioned earlier. If the student is married, their spouse would be considered a contributor. But in this situation, or like if a high school student is filling out their application, it's recommended that they start the application and then invite the parent. And then as for a married student, they start the application and then they invite their contributor. Also, I would recommend having your um, financial information ready to go, like their 2022 taxes. And if the student or the parents, contributors don't do taxes, have their W-2s ready for the year 2022. Many times students or those filing their financial aid application, they come into our workshops, but they're not prepared. They don't have their financial information. But the more information you have and you have all your documents ready to go, the faster we're able to submit the application and you have better results. The next question I wanted to move on to is, what application should I do? Okay. There is two applications that we have, and students were asking me, do I fill out two applications, the FAFSA and the CADA? No, you do not do two applications. You only do one application. And who does the FAFSA? So the student must be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, be visa holder, or an eligible non-citizen. Now, CADA is a little bit different, but it's very similar. However, the student must be undocumented with or without DACA, has temporary protected status, or is a visa U.S. holder. So, as long as they meet one of those requirements, they are to fill out their respected application. And there's many doubts with even the CADA application. Students are a little bit concerned, will my immigration status be shared with the authorities, or would I get in trouble? Will my parents get in trouble? No, I've never heard of a situation like that. And our universities, our federal student aid, they're there to serve our students, our community. And that's one of the wonderful things that they do. They're allowing students to dream and have financial assistance to reach their academic goals and have great careers, and overall give back to our communities. So FAFSA and CADA are very important, but you only fill out one application. Okay. Anything you wanted to add, Eric?
No, I think that's a really good question that I guess we could have started off with, since we're mentioning both applications, FAFSA and CADA. Thank you for, clarifying the distinctions of who should be applying for what application. But moving on, to the following question, and I think this one is a very important question because there is a lot of misconceptions out there. So the question is, are there common misconceptions about financial aid that you would like to clarify for listeners or for just the students and families in general? So, when it comes to misconceptions, the biggest one that we know of is, why am I even applying for financial aid if I know I'm not going to get any financial aid? So, there's this new law that was just implemented a couple of years ago in the state of California known as AB 469. AB stands for Assembly Bill 469. And that bill essentially is saying that all graduating students from a public institution in the state of California should be filing a financial aid application, whether it's the FAFSA or the California Dream Act. And so it's first of all, it's the law. So you want to comply with law, right? You want to definitely apply for financial aid. Now, you could opt out of doing a FAFSA or California Dream Act by doing, I believe it's called the opt out form. However, I personally discourage this because just because you apply for financial aid does not mean that you are committed to doing higher education, right? Or it doesn't force you to go to pursue a higher education at any institution, it just keeps your doors open. So with this new law, the AB 469 law, it keeps you it keeps your options open when it comes to pursuing higher education and getting financial aid. So even if you think that, your parents make too much money or your circumstances are, in a certain situation that you think you're not going to get financial aid, I would say, don't listen to that because you're missing out on potential funds for your higher education. And even if you're not trying to pursue higher education right now, this at least gives you the experience of how to file for financial aid eventually. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions that have always encountered with students and families. And that's what I let them know.
I did want to cover a myth or misconception is the FAFSA form costs money. So you shouldn't have to pay anything to fill out the FAFSA application. It's basically a free application for anybody who wants to apply to get financial aid or financial assistance. So pretty simple. Don't pay. Go to the colleges, go to the universities, reach out to us for assistance, and we will definitely not charge you for those services. The other one is my family makes too much money. There's always the middle class scholarship if you feel like your family's income is too high. There is such thing as a middle class scholarship, and also institutions, they require you to do a financial aid application in order to give you any scholarship, grants, or even, to admit you into the college. So, just fill out the FAFSA, at least it's on file, one less thing to take care of. But definitely the middle class scholarship is a great opportunity if your parents make a little bit too much. And again, if the financial status changes from the 2022 taxes that included on your financial aid application, if that changes, you can always reach out to the college and let them know of the change in financial contribution coming in, that you've had drastic changes or a situation happen, and they will more likely understand but look into the situation a little bit deeper. Also, another myth or misconception is the FAFSA form is really hard to fill out. Many students, they overthink it. They think it's really hard, but it's really not that hard. It's pretty simple. Reach out to organizations, colleges, Y2L, those who are trained to assist. That's what we're here for, to make this process a little bit simpler. The major part, or I would say the one that's a little bit takes a little bit more, is gathering the documents. But if you give, we do have to give the IRS consent to transfer information over to your FAFSA. If you give that authorization, all of your financial information is transferred over. If the person did taxes, if they didn't do taxes, then just bring over your W-2s. Another one is with FAFSA or financial aid, you will have to pay back any money you receive from federal student aid. No, you do not have to pay this money unless it's a loan. Then that's when you do have to pay it back. Other than that, it's money given to you. Once you go to the institution, college, university, you do have to meet the requirement of getting a 2.0 every semester, every quarter. And, the college works with it a little bit different. Some of them give you time, say your GPA went a little bit lower than usual. They'll work with you and, help you get that GPA back up.
So moving forward, the following question is, what is some advice you can give students who may feel intimidated throughout the FAFSA application process? And personally, the advice that I could give, and Tani's going to cover her own advice, is that you should not feel like you're alone in this. There are millions of students trying to submit a FAFSA, and that has been for various years since this application came into existence. So just keep in mind that, you know, millions of students have done it before you. and millions more will do it after you. So you should not feel like you're alone in this. You can always reach out to us and we're here to assist you. But that's mainly the biggest advice that I can give to students who feel intimidated by the FAFSA application. And now more than ever with this new application process, it could be quite intimidating with a new application. And I have to admit that for myself, it was a little bit intimidating when I first heard about the new changes. But the biggest thing that you can do in the that will contribute to your education and to you filing a successful FAFSA is to get informed. Get informed through the announcement that Federal Student Aid makes. Get informed through the California Student Aid Commission announcements. Get informed through our social medias through Y2LEF. That is the best way that you can tackle this application and not feel intimidated. Being informed. Tanya, what's your advice?
For me, top one would be use your resources. Your resources, like I mentioned earlier, it's like, Y2L, it's the your mentors, your counselors, those, mentors who are within education who may be able to guide you a little bit. But for sure, when filling out the financial aid application, FAFSA or CADA, definitely go to those who know what they're doing, like Y2L, and basically use your resources. Also, just take care of it as soon as possible. The sooner you're done with the application, the sooner you're able to take care of other things for senior year or for, your classes. So the sooner you turn it in, the better. But as long as you meet the deadline of April 2nd, very important. We will go ahead and move on to the next question, which is what documents and information do students need to gather before starting the FAFSA application? So you would need a student social security card if applicable. So if you do the FAFSA application, the student will need that social security. If you do the CADA, you do not need a social security. Bring your permanent residence card, alien card, registration number, parent social security if applicable. Again, if the parent has a social, parents' 2022 federal tax information, so your W-2s and IRS forms. So if they did taxes, bring your taxes. If contributors or the student didn't do taxes, bring the W-2s for 2022, of course. The next one would be records of earned income, such as earned income tax credit, AmeriCorps benefits, foreign earned income, and annual child support received if applicable. So those are some of the things you can bring with you. Like I mentioned earlier, the more prepared you are, the better. So that would be mostly the documents you will need.
Just to add on to what Tanya was saying is one of the biggest things that if you are going to come to one of our workshops or just you're going to be doing the application on your own at home, you might want to have ready the list of colleges that you would like to attend or are planning on attending or applied for. On the FAFSA application, likewise on the CADA application, it allows you to include up to 20 colleges or universities. So if you already know which institutions you would like to attend or are planning on attending or are eyeing with your eyes, definitely bring that list. It'll make the process much easier. And I did want to clarify that for the documents. So, for permanent residents, it's only if you should only bring your alien registration number if you're a permanent resident. If you're not a permanent resident and you're a US citizen, then you bring your social security number to file the FAFSA. And if you don't have an alien registration number or social security card, then you just do the California Dream Act application as we previously mentioned. And then everything else, definitely try to bring if you can. For students that are high school students or are, barely graduating, more than likely you won't have any tax records from 2022 just because you haven't worked and you're starting off. So if you can bring, and if you are a dependent student of your parents, and they're gonna be contributing to your application, you're gonna be needing those 2022 tax forms. with this new application being streamlined, they still say you might not need them, but if you're coming to one of our workshops, we highly recommend that you still bring them. It'll clarify a lot of things when it comes to, filing the application. It's an additional resource to have in the workshop. So definitely, if you can bring your parents 20, well, for this year in particular, whatever year you're listening in, you can definitely bring your 2022 taxes. And then just for reference, for applicants of the year 2025, 2026, you'll be using 2023 taxes. And then for the applicants of 2026, 2027, you'll be using 2024 taxes, and so forth and so forth. Right? So for every application cycle year that you're applying, you're using prior tax years. And I just wanted to clarify that up because some parents might show up or families might show up to our workshops with the wrong tax year, and it can definitely affect the movement of your application. Although with this new streamlined application, if everything is done correctly, you should be able to just, transfer everything from the IRS over to FAFSA application. But like I said, it's just an additional resource. The following question is, what does it mean if the FAFSA says it's still in review? So this is a very big one that I've been getting ever since March came around. But essentially, because of the new changes to the FAFSA application, by the way, for California Dream Act applicants, you can access your um, transcript of your application under your account right away once you submit. So you don't have to wait for that transcript of your application. But for FAFSA applicants, in order for you to access your FSS or FAFSA submission summary, um, that will take a while because of all the new delays to FAFSA. They're saying they're going to be, processing applications in sometime in the mid of this month of March. So just be on the lookout. You should be getting an email, or you can check yourself on your account if your application has been processed already. So right now it says in review. However, once it's processed, it should say something differently. It should say processed or just processed pretty much. And then you should be able to access your FSS. So once your entire application is processed, you should be able to access your FSS, and that's when you can start making corrections to your application. So, at the time of this podcast, of us recording it, FAFSA applications, you cannot make corrections yet, and you cannot view your FSS yet. However, that's going to happen sometime this mid March or late March, and you should be able to make corrections once it's processed, fully processed. What this also means is that at this time, now that the application is processed, Federal Student Aid has released your information to the colleges and universities you selected in your application. So that's essentially what it means for the application to be processed. So, pretty much three things. When it's processed, when your application is officially processed, one, you can access your FSS, FAFSA submission summary, and start making corrections. Two, your information has been released to colleges and universities and any other higher education institutions you listed on your application. And finally, three, it essentially means that you're going to be getting an SAI number now, and award packages will soon be coming in sometime probably in April. So for award packages, nor me nor Tanya can really speak specifically on them because every institution and school has their own process of giving out those award packages. But that's essentially what it means when your FAFSA is officially processed. Anything else you wanted to add, Tanya?
Yes. So we did mention in review. What does it mean when the FAFSA application says in review? But what if it says in progress? Okay, that's another point. Basically, you want your once you complete your application, your FAFSA application, you want it to say review. That's what we want. But if you happen to see in progress, that means that either you or the contributor have not finished their section. So either you're missing some information, signature on your end, or contributor has not started their part and have not signed, or vice versa. So you wanted to say in review, not in progress. Now, for those students who have parents that don't have a social security, the the filing process is a little bit different this year. There's many changes, and so their application might say in progress until the parent does the following steps to complete their section. So for them, we will go into it a little bit on the next question, but basically in progress means your application's not submitted. If it's submitted, it will be saying in review. With that said, we will move on to the next question, which is how can students whose parents do not have a social security submit their FAFSA form?
Alrighty, yeah. So for parents or contributors that do not have a social security number, um, like Tanya said, this year it's quite differently. I wouldn't say slightly differently, it's very different. So for parents that do not have a social security number and their student is a FAFSA applicant, they are going to have to create an FSA ID in order to contribute to the FAFSA applicant's application. I want to clarify for California Dream Act applicants, you do not need your parents to make an FSA ID or any CADR account. That does not exist for CADR applicants. Okay? So this is only pertaining to FAFSA applicants. So if you're a FAFSA applicant, pay close attention. So this is how it's going to work out. So for contributors that do not have a social security number, the first step is to create the account. Okay, that's the very first step. Try to create the account. Follow the instructions in creating the FSA ID account as they are listed on the, FSA ID creation portal. Okay. The second step is once you have a created FSAD account, now you need to verify that account with either the TransUnion questions that pop up when creating the account, or if the TransUnion questions, these are four base knowledge questions that should pop up, although for some families that they're not popping up, then in that case, if you are able to successfully create the account, you will be getting an automated email, or your contributor will be getting an automated email, and then they will just have to follow those steps on that email to get verified. Okay. For the verification, for that step, there's something called the attestation form, but I'm going to let Tanya talk about that. Okay. But I just wanted to cover the first step again. First step is to one, create the account. Step two is to verify the account either through the TransUnion knowledge base questions or through the email, through the verification email your contributor is going to get automatically. If they do not get that email automatically, then you will have to call Federal Student Aid in order to ask to start the verification process, okay? And that number is 1-800-433-3243. And now Tanya will go ahead and cover the attestation and validation of identity process, which is included in that verification email. And then she'll cover the third step, which is one of the biggest ones as well.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing that. So, attestation and validation of identity. This form is very important, and there is different components to it. When you first take a glance at it, it's section 1, which is the description. It's describing a little bit of what you will be filling out within this application. Section 2 has the instructions for the filer, the individual filling out this form. Also, section 3, which is most important since you do have to send this out, is section 3, which is personal and contact information. It says your full name, address, city, date of birth, email, and then the case number that's given within that email after creating your FSA ID for the contributor. And then section 4 is the attestation and signature. So the contributor does need to sign, print, and date their information. And lastly, it's section 5, which is acceptable identification documents, the second most important part of this application, which is sending in proof of identity documents. And there's two different parts of it, which is Group A requires U.S. state, territory, or driver's license, U.S. state or city identification card, or a foreign passport. You only need one thing from this area. From area 2 or Group B is a utility bill plus one of the following: municipal identification card, community ID, consular identification card. Lastly, it's the Section 6, which is Privacy Act Statement. It's more information for you to read. We do recommend that you read it, and before sending this off, you are informed of what you're signing and attach the required documents.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I really appreciate that. So that form is very important in verifying the contributor's identity, okay? Something that I just wanted to clarify regarding the groups on section, I believe it's section 5. So for supporting documents, you only need a document from one or the other group. So if your contributor, or if being the contributor, have a U.S. state territory driver's license, you can just use that. That's the document that you can just use from Group A. The other two is a U.S. state or city identification card and foreign passport. So if you have any of those, you can use any of those three. Okay. From Group B, if you don't have any of the aforementioned three documents from Group A, then you will need to either use a utility bill. That could be like your bill from the water, from the phone, from the light, the gas, you name it, whichever bill, utility bill you have. But with that, you're going to have to attach a municipal identification card, a community ID, or a consular identification card for Mexican citizens. It's called La Matrícula Consular. So you might, you can use that, but if you are going to use a Matrícula Consular, you will definitely have to be attaching a utility bill along with it. So it's either one document from Group A, but if you don't have any of those, if your contributor does not have any of those, then you go to Group B, but it'll be two supporting documents. It'll be the utility bill along with either a municipal identification card, a community ID, or a consular identification card. Okay, just to clarify. And then the final step, it's the contribution step. So we've covered step 1, just to kind of summarize. We've covered step 1, which is creating the FSA ID. Step 2, which is verifying the FSA ID. And step 3 is contributing to the student's FAFSA application. For this step, you cannot do anything in this step if you don't have step 1 and 2 completed. Okay, so one step builds on the second and following, okay, up until you get to step 3. So once your contributor, whether that being your parent or your spouse, if once they have a verified account, that is when they can go ahead and contribute to your application from the invitation that you sent them as the student. Okay, so they should be getting an invitation in their account under My Activity, and that's where they can access the invitation. But they should also be getting an email stating that you, the student, is requesting their support to file the FAFSA application. So that's very important. Okay, so the third step is the most crucial, because even if you do steps 1 and 2 and you're successful at it, step 3, which is the contribution step, that is where they're actually, contributing to your application as the student, right? So your contributor needs to contribute, essentially. That's the whole purpose of why they named them contributor, to contribute to your application. So the third step is very important and crucial. Alrighty, that concludes that question. Now moving on to the final question. What does it mean when the IRS does not retrieve the information it needs and asks the parent for manual input? And before I hand the mic over to Tanya, I just want to kind of make a very important note on this. In order for the IRS to share information with a verified account, with a FSAID account, the account needs to be verified. And verification is for all, right? So when you create an FSA ID, whether it's with a social security number or not a social security number for those contributors that do not have social security numbers, for when it comes to social security holders, it takes 1 to 3 days for them to get verified, right? So if you're creating your FSA ID on the spot during a workshop or at home, and you're expecting to be done with the application on that same day, it might not be the case, okay? Specifically for your contributor. So if your contributor creates an FSA ID on the spot, hoping that they can contribute that same day, that might not be the case because the the direct data exchange function, which is transferring IRS information over to the FAFSA, that can only be done with a verified FSA ID account, right? If the account is not verified, then it has limited access and it can only do so much for you then. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Tanya. Okay.
Thank you, Eric, for covering that. So we definitely want your account to be verified or the contributor's account to be verified before they can begin their section of inputting financial information. So if the account is not verified within the 1 to 3 business days, you need to wait till you get that email or that notification saying that your account was notified. So what do I mean with this? So basically, you don't want to input any financial information as soon as you create the FSA ID. You make sure that you wait the 1 to 3 business days to even add financial information. If you see that the account, if you know that you just created the account and it's still not being verified, wait the given time so that the parent or contributor can go in there and input their information. What we want is the IRS to transfer your tax information to the FAFSA without you having to input it manually. I know that once the account is created, you will see that you're able to add in the information manually. But like I mentioned, and I want to repeat it, wait for your account to be verified to be able to go into your account and provide that information. So we want the IRS to transfer this information. You should just go in there, add minimal information, and then sign your part of being the contributor so that the application can be submitted.
Alrighty, and then we're almost going to be done with the podcast here today, but I do want to make a disclaimer. This podcast is not direct advice to any one student. These are just questions that we have been, receiving community workshops and in our, social media direct messages and, people that have been coming into our office and just been asking these questions. So again, this is not direct advice or a direct uh, counseling to a student, any particular one student, okay? Keep in mind that when it comes to financial aid, every family is unique in their own way. And every family is going to have its own circumstances and its own different requirements in knowing how to file this application, whether it's for CADA. So that's that one disclaimer I wanted to put out there. This is not direct advice to any one student. This is just answering us and professionals in the financial aid field answering questions that we've been receiving throughout the community. And with that in mind, I do want to leave you all with our contact information. So if you have any particular question about your, financial aid application or about your circumstances or case, you can always contact us via email at cash4college@y2lef.org. And you can always give us a call at 661-374-8817. That is our office number here at the office. And if you're not following us on social media already, you can definitely do that by, contacting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I believe we now have TikTok. Is that correct, Leonie? Okay, we have TikTok. So if you are a fan of TikTok, then you can definitely contact us there. I'm going to go ahead and provide you with the handle for Instagram, which is at Youth to Leaders. But honestly, just search us up on Google and we will pop up anywhere. Or you can also contact us on our website. But other than that, is there any last minute comments that you would like to leave, Tanya?
Yeah, so two top ones is make sure you're doing the correct application, the 2024-2025 application, not the 23-24. Okay. And also make sure you submit your application, your financial aid application by April 2nd. Don't wait till the last minute. You don't want to be that student. Submit it by March so you avoid any complications. But other than that, thank you guys for listening to our podcast, and I hope you continue to listen in. We're here to support you, so use your resources. Take care.